Board President Cornett
Here.
and Vice President Irvin and Member Jarrell are currently absent.
Item 2, public comment. Members of the audience may at this time address the board regarding only matters on the closed session and study session agendas. Are there any members of the public who wish to address the Board of Education? Not seeing any. We'll begin with the study session, multi-year vision and planning.
Thank you, Board President Cornett, Board Member Girardi, Board Member Spitaqueta as well. Before we jump into tonight's study session, I wanted to take us back to the time when I entered the district. When I was brought on as the new superintendent, July 1 of last year, I found a district that has a lot of excellent qualities, from our brilliant scholars to our dedicated staff to our experienced board and to all of our classified and certificated leaders and our families and community members. A very rich and a district that has a lot of great historical events that have occurred to make it the district that it is. And I'm very happy to be here, very proud to be here. But I also found, too, as we've gone through, or as I went through my first 100 days, and as I've talked to our community members and talked to our leaders and talked to our teachers, also found a need for us to unite around common goals, common shared vision, and common priorities that unite our communities, that unite our educators, that unite our leaders, as also shared in our surveys that I did earlier in the year. And one comment that stood out to me, but it was a trend in those surveys, is about having a united district identity. And so when you're new to a school district and you're figuring out how to move the district forward and listening to student voice, parent voice, educator voice, classified member, just team voice, you begin to get a clear sense of how to move forward in a united way. And so we've gone down this road with the development of a multi-year vision to do that, to get not only the voice of all of our partners in how we move forward, but also to honor that voice and continue to include them in what we do on a daily basis. So we asked Jim DeLizia to come in this process with us and to begin to facilitate the process of developing a multi-year vision that unites us, that gets all these shared voices together and gets our priorities and goals in line so we have something to look forward to not only now, but between now, 2030 and beyond. So I'm going to turn it over to Jim tonight to take us through those processes and share with you what we found so far and ask for your feedback and input as well. So Mr. Jim DeLizia, thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Is it okay if I'm on my feet? I'm much more comfortable rather than behind a table. It is extremely exciting. The core planning group, which is your extended cabinet, has been hard at work. We've met 3 or 4 times, assessed a ton of information and input that we've gathered so far. And so I wanted to kind of give you a highlight tonight of what we've done, where we are, a reminder of what it is we're seeking to produce and how we're going to use it. And then there are a number of places where I would love to get some discussion and some feedback from the board, certain issues where I think your perspective is not only needed, but is going to help us set some targets that we need to hit in these areas. So let me do a quick review of where we are in the process and what we have accomplished so far, and a little bit about what we've learned. I will apologize already. We gave you a ton of background information. We thought you'd be interested in some of the data that we collected. These are the documents that were resulting from all of the outreach and surveys and interviews and thought exchanges that were summarized and that the core planning group has been working through to do its work. So I think if you have a minute in your schedules, I think you'll find some of the findings and the input very interesting, and I'll share with you who we've talked to. Yeah.
have copies of the presentation? They're not in the folder. Thank you.
And you've got that, right? Okay, great. Okay, so the first part of what the core planning group did in amassing the data is do an assessment. Building on Marcus's first 100 days in his listening tour, we first looked at sort of the changing environment in which the district is trying to fulfill this mission. And there were a number of areas that we gathered perspective on. One was what is happening with public education, whether it's national trends, state trends, local trends. We looked at that landscape. We also looked at the changing nature of the community in the Coachella Valley. We looked at all kinds of community profile statistics, some assumptions and some outlook as to where the community was going. And then, of course, the district operating landscape and some performance measures on how the district was doing and where it stood at this moment in time. From that information, which you'll see captured in the background report, part 1, we looked at the implications to scholars, families, to the district, and we started to drill down into a set of opportunities for improvement. Where are the areas where we could apply some targeted strategies and progress markers to really move the district forward? And so we defined those. We also defined where the core planning group felt innovation was going to be required. What got us here to this point was not the same strategy that was going to get us forward. And so we looked at a number of those areas in trying to do this assessment. Where we are now is that's completed, and we are taking all of that insight and we're starting to apply it to revisit some of the fundamentals of, as Marcus said, the district's identity. We've gotten inside input, outside input, and we're trying to start to craft a set of statements which can add on to your current mission and vision and belief statements that will reflect for all the various audiences a sense of what is our core identity and purpose, where are we going, what are the goals we're setting for how we'd like to see the district evolve, and starting to really define a sense of the district's culture. In my interviews with you and with others, the importance of a conscious, intentional culture where anyone who engages with the district experiences something very consistent was a very important concept. And so we're putting the building blocks together to better define the expectation around district culture. So all of these are pretty fundamental pieces. So we're starting with the big picture, and I'll walk through some of that with you. But just a reminder of what it is we're building. I know it's been a long time since October when I first laid some of this out with you. So the product that we're building, this multi-year vision, includes a number of different components to it. First is very foundational, our why, our core purpose. Again, culture, how we agree to consistently operate the district. That's the foundational piece. Pillars of performance. Where do we need to be performing at a very high level of excellence if we're going to fulfill this mission that we have? And what are our long-term goals to evolve the district? So again, pretty foundational, but gets a little bit more directional in where we need to focus our resources, our energy, our innovative ideas. And then finally, the piece that we're starting to work on now is our measurable objectives. We've identified, as I said, those areas for improved performance. And now we are gathering input and information and perspective to set measurable, tangible targets to deal with those, address those issues, and actually move the district forward in some very specific areas. So that's the product that we're producing. If you remember from October, what will happen with that product is that it'll provide the context and the guide and the targets for every department and every site to then do their planning. They'll have very clear expectations of where we need to achieve and what we need to achieve, and that'll feed that other planning that's done throughout the district. So a rundown, and again, you can see it in the background data reports. It has all the references as to the particular outreach that we did, but we looked externally at all the environments in which the district is operating. We obviously looked at your internal dashboards, your LCAP, anything that spoke to the performance of the district to this point. And then here's an example of some of the partner research, the outreach that we did. The surveys, the interviews, the forums. I held multiple forums with various partner groups, parents, community and business partners, media, education officials, many ways to get deeper into beyond what a survey or an interview could tell us. We've polled every employee of the district and given them an opportunity to weigh in. And then we've really stretched, this was really very interesting, and you'll see some of the results. We stretched beyond the traditional partners to try to get unique perspective of whether it was of the community and what the needs of the community were, or whether it was views of the district from the outside. And so we called these thought leader influencer interviews. And so we spoke to some industry groups like the Realtor Association. We spoke to the Chamber. We spoke to some nonprofits in town. We spoke to the Band of Indians, tribal representatives. We spoke to education officials, all for the point of not just relying on our own experience and knowledge, but trying to press the envelope and really get perspectives on sort of the outer layer of how people view the district and what's happening in the community. So that's just a snapshot of the outreach effort so far. And then when we develop concepts that we want to test, these are the groups that we're testing them with. The consensus group that you all helped constitute back in October, very cross-cutting, very diverse set of individuals inside and outside of the district. We're testing these concepts with all the employees. I'm holding a forum with the school site principals on Thursday, and of course coming to you and giving you opportunities to weigh in on some of these findings as well. So that's where we are. Let me share with you some of the concepts that we are starting now to create some draft statements around for your review next month. But here are some concepts that actually would love to get some of your feedback on. First, on the frame, we said core purpose, long-term goals, and district culture. So in addition to the mission that you have, what we're looking to create is a very clear, concise, and memorable description of what the district does and why the district does it, something that can be understood and remembered by all kinds of stakeholders and audiences within and outside of the district, and to give some baseline focus to resources and action in the district. And so we did a number of interesting exercises with various groups to drill down to why does this district exist? If you had to describe in 3 or 4 or 5 words the core purpose of what we do and why we do it, what would that be? And so at the top, you'll see some of the initial thoughts that we came to as a core planning group and put out there for some dialogue. And then in the green box, you'll see the result of some of the interesting feedback that we got, which was actually great. It was a clear, very clear message that yes, we educate, but in this day and age and going forward, if a scholar is going to learn, a school district is going to have to drive a lot of the elements which support that learning environment, and that has to be part and parcel of the core purpose of the district. So it's not only to educate, but to build not only to build knowledge and skills, but to prepare those scholars to take those knowledge and skills and do something with it when they leave the district. And so, hi, how are you? No problem. And so that was a lot of very consistent feedback that we got. And so we developed a set of concepts that I'd like to kind of get and these are not statements yet, but they're going to be shortly, but I want to get your feedback on some of these concepts. Again, core purpose, what we do, why we do it in a very few keywords that can be understood by multiple audiences. So we're testing right now 3 of these concepts. The first one is educate, prepare, and inspire lifelong learners. The second concept, which was also a big theme in the input, is that the way that we educate is as important as what we educate. And so it was providing educational experiences that will help scholars discover their path. Again, not the exact words, but a concept about the core purpose. And the third was to empower scholars to use their knowledge and skills, obviously then to take those and succeed in life, what they're going to do after they leave with this base that we've given them. So, are they very, very different? No, you could see the similarities, but they are born out of an input about the why of this district, the impact you seek to have, and what it is at the core we do, which is going to address the types of resources that we use and how we align them, is going to be, even at this stage, which is baseline number 1 of defining this district, it has a tremendous implication on how you look further in the plan, on how you're then going to align, what you're going to focus your resources and action around if this, in fact, is the impact that we're seeking to have. So let me just pause there for a minute. I know these are very broad, but they were born out of some very interesting feedback that we got from a variety of people. And one of the concepts, for instance, I'll just give you a little flavor of this. In the yellow box, to develop the whole child, intellectual, social, emotional, and physical. There was, and you'll see, I gave you the results, the percentage results of who got attracted to what. That actually was the highest, resonated the most with a lot of different audiences. The challenge through discussion that we arrived at was that is a great concept, but the feasibility of that and what we can achieve and the impact we can have as a district needed to be considered. And so these other 3 concepts were more in line with who we are, what we do, and what we're trying to achieve with our scholars. So let me just pause there, just reactions to any of those 3 concepts in the green box. Again, as a just very concise, memorable description of what we do and why we do it. What is your reaction and your thoughts to these?
Well, I need a little more clarity here.
Sure.
Are we preparing a new vision statement? Because these read like vision statements to me.
Well, definitions of terms is always interesting when you launch a process like this, because what one person calls a vision as opposed to a mission can be quite different. You have a mission statement. You have a vision statement. Now, we are calling this whole document, this what we're producing, a multi-year vision. And so we do, I think, have to work out language. But
Because I think our vision statement, personally, is, how did you frame it? A concise, memorable description of what we do and why.
Yeah.
Lifelong learning starts here.
Yeah.
Period.
Okay.
So I don't know if we're recreating the wheel here or what we're trying to do. So I'm trying to get more context and exactly what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So Jim, I'll jump in right there. So we do have a mission statement and vision statement that drives who we are as a district. Looking at moving forward over the next 5 to 10 years, we're trying to make sure that we craft some purpose statements that help move us forward. So the language is key as we begin to put language to the work that we're going to do. For example, if we say by 2035, we want all of our scholars to either be college, career, or find their own path in life, then that's what we're discussing. We're discussing what will that look like? What will our mission and vision look like between now and 2030, 2035? So right now, as we bring our people together, they've been able to give us different thoughts and perspectives around our current mission and vision and what they want to see moving forward. So right now, it's just trying to understand who we are and who we will continue to be, and language is very important around that. So that's anytime that you put forth a new vision, or you're going to do something that's going to impact all, you want to unite them around something that's exciting and new. So this is a part of that. How do we continue to build on what we're doing, but also come up with new terms that take us into the future?
To me, maybe to add to this, is that, yes, the vision is lifelong learning starts here, but these are like key statements of what does that mean?
Yeah.
So lifelong learning starts here, so it means that we want to educate, build scholars' knowledge and skills. We want to prepare them for college, career, and life, and to develop the whole child. And I see that both the green and the yellow are pretty well similar.
Sure.
If you want to develop the whole child, you want to empower scholars to use their knowledge and skills. To me, that's kind of one and the same.
I know, yeah.
So
It's a continuum in part.
It's
Yeah,
a
one builds on the other.
Right,
Yeah.
and so the vision, yes, is lifelong learning starts here, but what do we mean by that?
Yeah.
And so, is that what we're trying to develop under that, what we
Yeah.
mean by that?
Yeah.
Exactly what I'm trying to get to. Does
Okay.
this support
Right.
the vision statement?
Yeah. What we looked at your current vision, your current mission, your belief statements, and said, as Marcus said, how can anyone who engages with this district, whether they work here or outside, or you will maybe support a school, be a business partner, how do they need to understand and commit and buy into what happens here? And what's the impact, not only to the scholar, but to those families and to the community? And that's the lens through which we were looking at this. So we're not looking, at this point, we are not looking to try to replace those statements, but to fill in the understanding. So when we say lifelong learning starts here, that's great. It's almost like a kind of a resonating tagline. I mean, it has that kind of resonance with
But
it.
what does it mean?
But what does it mean? And so it was interesting at one point with the core planning group, and I said, we need to drill this down, and we were trying to figure out, who needs to understand this, how do we describe our why, all of that. And I said, if you had to describe in a few words, pull something from the for-profit sector, if you had to describe what business are we in, what would you say the business is that you're in as a school district? What it is at the core that we do, what is the impact we seek to have, and then through that, we sort of had a discussion which led to some of the concepts above, and then we started putting that out there and said, do you understand, what does this mean to you? When you think of a successful scholar that's going to graduate from this district, what's involved in that? What do you think the district's responsibility is? What do you think their core purpose is? We kind of generated a discussion to get feedback from a wide variety of folks about those concepts. And they told us, education isn't enough. We have to take care of or create an environment in which that child can learn. And so it is become the responsibility of a school district not to do everything, but to ensure that knowledge and skill can be built, and this was important, it didn't stop there. That knowledge and skill could be built, and that we prepared them to do something with it in finding their individual path, whatever it was. It was interesting, we used college, career, and life in the front. That didn't play well with everybody because because it was almost like a continuum. And we said, students and scholars, it isn't necessarily a continuum for them all. It is about giving me a base set of knowledge and skills that I can then take and find my passion, my path, and I can use those to have college, great. If it's great career and my interest there and you're exposing me, great. But in essence, it's to identify and follow my path. And that's the concept that resonated the most. And so we started to kind of play with that, and this is sort of where we're at. So long answer to your question.
I have another question about the multi-year vision. we take different generation of students. We take generation of students that starting in kindergarten, and also a student that are in middle school, but a student that they will see these benefits for them only for short time,
Right.
like the high school that graduating this year, the one in the next year.
Right.
The multivision include that a student that needs all these benefits in one way to more
In an urgent, more in an urgent
more,
way.
yeah, something versus the generation that are in the lower
Yeah.
levels. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the nature of a because the group of individuals you're trying to have this positive impact in are constantly evolving. We did get some feedback of that the exposing of the students to certain opportunities, the building of certain critical skills actually started at TK. I mean, the sense of that it was not only, appropriate or opportune to a certain level of student. That we absolutely discussed. Whether or not this vision is going to take into account the fact that if some scholar is in high school, what do we need to do right now to try to give them the base that this suggests that we're giving them? And so part of what we're going to have, and what I want to chat with you about in a minute, is a sense of the issues that we need to address and where's there more of a sense of priority or urgency in where we are now with some of these areas and where we hope to be. And because, I mean, we identified, I think it was 15, 16 different issues, areas where to achieve any core purpose like this, we need to address. The degree to which we need to address them is a level of urgency that you can't go full cylinder on 15, 16 different issues. So we do need to do some thinking about setting measurable objectives and milestones on how we're going to proceed and manage those resources. And so I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of thinking about that in a minute. But it is a good point. I mean, some of these students are only going to have a year or two experience in this multi-year vision, and some are going to have 12. So how do we address that?
We've been almost saying this for a long time. I mean, this isn't, I don't think, anything new to people who've been in our district.
Right.
I mean, if people are upset about to prepare scholars for college and career and maybe their life's path, I mean, that is what we're doing.
Right.
I mean, we are trying to get kids that want to go to college.
Right.
We are trying to get kids that want a career
Right.
and the others for their life's path. We are
Right.
trying to prepare them for that.
Yeah.
Right.
My question I have is where do we see diversity, equity, and inclusion? Where do we see that anywhere in here? I know I don't know if I maybe missed that or something.
No. This is only one piece of the set of statements that we're developing.
So would you say this is the start of it, or would you say that this is part of it?
Well, we're looking at core purpose, mission, vision, core purpose, long-term goals, and the belief statements and the culture of the organization as the strategic framework for the district. Those foundational statements that describe who are we, where are we going, what do we stand for.
So in saying
This is a piece of it.
So it's a piece of it.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna guess further down
Yep.
this
You'll see
slide,
it.
you're going to address
Yep,
that.
you'll see it.
Okay.
Yep, this is a piece.
And to try to jump in on Karen's comment, many of the concepts that you see here have been talked about. What we're going to try to do is get after it over the next few years on how do we make these things come to fruition across our school sites.
Right.
Meaning, how do we get it done? How do we create this vision where everybody's on board, the community knows what we're doing, our scholars know what we're doing, we're all speaking the same language. So language matters, and as we capture it in the multi-year vision, it becomes more real to individuals. I hope that makes sense. It's how we go about this work and how we drill down and make it more real to our scholars and our families and our school sites.
Yeah. And the other thing, too, in a way, I'm very glad to hear that these are not brand-new concepts. They shouldn't be. These are foundations for the type of organization that you're running in with the purpose that you have. Where they're different is that to achieve this on a consistent long-term level, there are issues and areas to be addressed. There's areas for improvement. There's milestones to make progress. And so we quickly are trying to either reconfirm or validate or take a new perspective on the foundation so that we can then say, if this is a concept that every student should experience, that the community, family should experience, then where do we need to start aligning different strategy or different resources to get this advanced? So hopefully, this is not a revolutionary concept at this point. It's more, what do we need to do in the next several years to ensure that this foundation is being built
And I
on?
think that's the part that's been missing. What do we do to make
Exactly.
sure that if this is our vision, if this is our mission, how do we get there and where are we lacking?
Exactly. Yeah, eventually. This is the why. Let me go on and I'll show you. So if we go back very quickly of what we're building here, yeah, here it is. This is the why. This is the foundation. Then, if we're going to actually realize that, then where do we have to perform? And what goals do we have for how this district absolutely needs to evolve over the next 5 to 10 years? Okay, that's now getting into our pillars. So our pillars and long-term goals build on the foundation, that graphic where the mission, the purpose, the culture is the foundation. The pillars suggest what are the areas in which we have to perform, and what is our vision for excellence. What, hopefully in 5 to 10 years, this is how we're operating. This is how we've evolved. And so we've got, at this stage, and we're drafting the long-term goals now, but what you see on the screen are the 3 pillars: scholar, academic, performance, and preparedness; outreach, engagement, and partnership; and district culture, operations, and sustainability. These are the 3 areas in which we believe that the district has to operate at a very, very high level of excellence if it, in fact, is going to achieve this mission, its vision, and the core purpose we have as a district. What you see underneath those are the beginnings of what will become long-term goals that are very directional. They start to describe, for instance, I'll give you an example. Under scholar, academic performance and preparedness, you'll see 3 bullets down: consistent alignment of curriculum, instruction, and assessment. Huge. So we envision, as a goal that we constantly strive to evolve, that there will be an alignment between curriculum, instruction, and assessment across the district. Now, I'm making that up right now, but as an example of taking those concepts for how we want the district to evolve in that pillar, and you will see next time we meet probably 2 or 3 statements, long-term goals, that describe how we expect the district to evolve over the period of this multi-year vision. Within that pillar, outreach, engagement, and partnership, and district culture, operations, and sustainability. So this is a little bit more specific than the core purpose, and provides some direction for programs and resources and services, because this is the direction those need to advance. And in the latter part of the multi-year vision, we're going to set some targets for progress, measurable objectives and targets for progress in these areas. So this is what you see here. These are still part of the framework, very directional, very long-term, but start to give some shape to how we expect the district to evolve in these areas.
And Jim, if I could jump in here to Mr. Irvin's question. That second bullet point that talks about scholars in all subgroups, that's an area that has to be refined for us. And when we talk about equity and diversity, and we point out all groups, then we begin to target measurable objectives for African American scholars, our English learners, our scholars with special needs, and you call that out in a multi-year vision. You say, here's our priorities, and now here's how we're going to get there for all of those scholars. So this is one of the, it's the what, but then it's then going deeper on how we're going to get there. And we
Right.
would call that out in a multi-year vision and have it pronounced. For example, our African-American scholars shall, over the next few years.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So that would be in there. So that part right there, the all student groups, that would be called out specifically for equity, diversity, and making sure that all of our scholars are targeted in this vision and spelled out intentionally.
Yeah, and you'll see that in a second when we look at the issues we have to address if we're going to achieve these goals.
Can we call
Equity and
that-
access
Can
is
we
one of
call
those.
that then, when we say all students groups, can we say equity? I mean, that's what I put down is the second one is equity. If you look at the outreach, engagement, and partnership, the fourth bullet is also equity. And if you look at the fifth bullet in district culture and operation, it's really a culture of accountability, equity, innovation, and empowerment.
And you'll see that on the next slide. When we look at the issues we have to address around which we're going to set these measurable objectives, equity and access is one of those
Okay.
issues. So, yeah, absolutely. So we're starting, I can't hold this and do,
Maybe
We're
put
stu-
that word in there,
Yeah.
in each one
Got
of
it.
those
Yep.
frameworks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we are going to be shaping the goal statements, and so we can
Okay.
include that there and then treat it more specifically when we get to that.
So you're saying that you're not going to add it in here? You're going to add it somewhere else?
No, we'll add it here. These aren't the statements yet, so we'll add it here, but then we're going to call out the actual issue of ensuring that equity as a separate issue and deal with objectives that relate to that issue, and you'll see that in a second.
Okay. So I just want to make sure. Sometimes we have to be intentional about what we're doing.
Yep.
So using vague statements
Right.
a lot of times never address or deal with the issue.
Right.
And if we're going to say that we're going to do that, I think that we need to name it out.
Yep.
Because a lot of times when we are doing that work, we use a lot of vague words.
Yep.
And we've seen the continual cycle of this over and over again when it's not intentionally marked out. And so I want us to be able to mark it out and say that's what we're doing, if
Yep.
that's what we're going to do.
You're going to see it here, and then you also will see it here, because part of the district's culture and how we operate, what guides our operations and our actions, we're starting to develop a set of concepts that will turn into a culture statement. And I want to talk about this in a minute, because I talked to a lot of you in the interviews about this idea that it's not enough to say, here's what we believe. It's not even enough to say, and here's the expected actions and behaviors that relate to that concept, and manage to that without the accountability loop of everybody exhibiting this consistently throughout the district. You have pretty statements on walls. So when we're developing this piece of the framework, we've got it to the point now, and we're designing these statements, but there are about, I've combined some of these since this slide, but there's about 8 to 10 concepts that we're working with that describe how we do our work and how we engage those that we serve, whether it's a scholar, whether it's their family, whether it's a community member, et cetera. And so you'll see here a statement around equity and fairness as well. So it'll be in the long-term goals, it'll be in the culture statement, and then here it is again when we get down to what are the actual issues around which we need to set measurable objectives to show progress and hit targets that will advance the district in these areas. So under each pillar again, we're identifying those issues around which we are now starting to develop measurable objectives, and you'll also see equity and access there as well. So you're going to see it all throughout, the bigger statements, the culture statement, and the issues.
How will the diversity culture be measurable? Shouldn't it also be over there in scholars and academics?
Yeah.
Because that is what's measurable.
Yeah. It actually will also show up when we look. These culture concepts really cut across all of the activity in the district. This is the guiding principles by which we do our work in any of those pillars, or by which we engage with any of our partners, right? So these statements will cut across all of that and be those guiding statements. And we need to translate them into behaviors and actions which reflect what that looks like in practice.
Well, saying it is one thing,
Right.
and then having it in writing is another thing.
Yep.
Because if it's not in writing,
Right.
anybody can interpret it any type of way. So you can have your
Exactly.
intentions of what you think that it should look like.
Exactly.
But if it isn't up there in writing, then it really doesn't exist.
Exactly. And these will be statements. These will actually
So
be
go back to that other one that you just left from.
this one?
So why, if that's the case,
Yeah.
then the scholar and academic performance,
Yep.
that as well need to have equity in it.
Mm-hmm.
It has to have equity somewhere over there too, because that is where you get the results, that is where the tangible, the diversity in culture, that's more of a feeling.
Yep.
And
Yep.
we need to have more than just a feeling. We need to make sure that if we're going to say that we're doing this for our scholars, that we need to have it, because academics is really what drives all of this. Because at the end of the day,
Right.
that's what we're striving to have is academic excellence.
Yep.
So we need to have that over there across, not on a field section.
Got it.
Because we already know that we feel that we're equitable district, but when we go to academics and look at the numbers, it doesn't show that. So I think that we need to make sure that we have that across.
Right.
And not just in one section where.
And have it
feels-
measurable, have a
Yes.
target.
It has to be,
Yeah.
has to be
Right.
targeted and
Right.
measurable.
Yep.
Because that's the only way that we can show that we're
Yep.
doing it.
Yep.
Mr. Irvin, I'll add to that real quick, and I think one way to capture that, when you talk about achieving higher academic performance, you want to capture it as equitable outcomes, and then you list out the student groups that you're going to target. So you say equitable outcomes, and then you make sure that you list those student groups out so that they're called out in writing in a document that everyone is aware of. And so then you don't leave any interpretation. You don't leave it up to anyone's interpretation, but you have it laid out. Equitable outcomes, this group, this group, this group.
Yeah. And what's important about that, too, is the step that would be taken after this, which is once you've got those targets laid out, then the departments and the sites are going to have to work on
And
how do we.
across the district.
Exactly. But how do we actually achieve that? It's great to
Correct.
set a target, but what do we have to put in place to actually hit that? And that's where the second piece is.
And I think in order to get that,
Yep.
it has to be in writing.
Right.
And it has to be there so
Yep.
they know exactly what it is and not guess what it is. We have to take away the guess.
Yep.
And we also have to take away being so vague with how we write it.
I really am passionate about suggesting when we talk about scholar supports and we just say equity access, we need to always say inclusion. And the scholar supports are differentiated scholar supports. It's not one shoe fits all. And it says including special ed. Well, wouldn't that be ELs and other groups too? So it would be differentiated supports for every student group, not just including special ed.
Right.
And how that's measured, I'm not sure right now, but it has to be not one thing works for every child. And that's why we use universal design for learning
Yes.
here in the district.
Right.
So for me, differentiated is important.
Got it. Excellent. Good. Yeah, and this is the state, we're continuing to work on the framework, we're testing those concepts, we're drafting statements. You will see those in May and get a chance to react to the actual way we are using that language. And we're starting tomorrow, the core planning group is meeting again. We're starting to do the homework now behind some of these issues to know what have we done, what's working, what do we know to be the key challenges and opportunities in these areas? What challenging yet feasible targets can we start setting for progress here? So we are starting the process of actually defining those objectives and targets tomorrow. And so by May, you should also see a draft that you can look at on how it's showing up in writing on this work as well. So that's sort of where we are with that. And as I said, this is, I was hoping to get I think we have time, I was hoping to get your sense of priority here. As you can see, I think there's about 17 issues there. And again, these were not just thrown on the wall halfway through the process. All of these issues were born out of the very first piece of research we did when we had outreach and conversations and forums and interviews. I took all of that and we started to see what were the issues that bubbled up from all of that input and all of that information we gathered that became issues around which we needed some measurable progress if we were in fact going to move the district forward and achieve that purpose statement, that mission statement. These did not just happen midway through. They were born out of all of the dialogue and discussion. And so I feel very confident that they are all deeply connected into where the action needs to occur if we're going to take the district to where we want it to be in that vision. And of course, we could, if anything pops up that we didn't cover, we can absolutely engage, but feeling very comfortable with these as foundational issues to be addressed. So you'll see more specifics on that next time as well. Yes.
Was budget brought up at all for Culture Gym and Operation Sustainability?
Yeah, that's where it is.
Is it there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, but I'm not sure if I see that.
Well, you'll see it in
Oh, it's coming
the
out.
specifics. You'll
It's
see it in
coming
the
out,
specifics,
okay.
yeah. But that whole conversation about, and it started with what's going on in the environment, with the political environment and legislative and regulations and compliance and demands and shortfalls. All of that led to thinking through how are we going to financially be sustainable, and in two ways. One, so that the programs and services that our scholars need can be reliably delivered and not, oh, we don't have the money for that this year, or that we align our resources around where we believe the priorities are to support that scholar success. So it's two very different things, but it's all bucketed in that huge issue. Not only stability, but alignment was a very critical concept, not only with the money, but with that first bullet. This is what Marcus was saying. If we don't have a shared vision, every level, every component of the district doesn't see the same place we're trying to get to, if we don't have a culture that's consistent and one of accountability and innovation, there's alignment that has to happen there too. Because if that's fractured, very little chance that we're going to be able to hit all cylinders on where we want to go. And so you can see with this multi-vision is done and there are those clarity of expectations, you can see the equally important part of trying to get ownership and buy-in and accountability around these things. That is going to be equally as important a task as designing the vision. You start to see the clues of that in this list. So, more on that. I do want to ask if I can get you to do one thing. There are 17 of these issues. That's a lot. It's a lot to roll forward. I don't know that we want to get your sense on the urgency and level of significance in rolling forward on some of these things sooner in the multi-year vision rather than later. So I would never ask you to prioritize 1 through 17. That's impossible. They're all up there because they're critical. But I would really love to get some quick input on you on what half a dozen of those issues do you believe require more urgent attention to advance the district mission, let's say in the next year to 18 months, okay? Again, they're all important. It's, by not voting for something, you're not saying it's not important, but I'm going to ask you, I'm going to ask the principal as well to get their perspective on what half a dozen of those do you believe that in our multi-year vision, in setting those metrics and milestones, we need to have greater urgency and attention sooner in the multi-year vision rather than later. And so I'm going to give you a little sheet here. It lists all 17 of the issues. And if you wouldn't mind, grab a pen and check 6 of those, which again you believe have a greater sense of ultimate urgency sooner in the vision rather than later, if that makes sense. Got it? Okay. The same ones. There should be. Do you see something different? Did I miss something? Yeah, 6, 6, and 7. Yep. there's one more. Do we have, what do we got, a couple minutes, Marcus? There's a quick discussion I want to have on a particular issue. 10 minutes? Okay. Yep, we can do it. We can do it. Okay, while you're thinking about that, there is one issue in particular. Well, there's many issues. If we had another hour, there'd be many issues. But there's one issue then in particular that we thought, if we're going to start thinking about these measurable objectives and tangible progress markers, et cetera, that it would be terrific if we had more of a sense of your perspective on this particular issue. And I'll just read it through you. These are the questions I'm hoping to have a very quick discussion here. But we know that family and community engagement and active partnership are essential to positive scholar outcomes. We know that. In the very core purpose, the conversation was, we can educate within these four walls all day long, but the caretaking of what happens with that scholar when they go back home, what happens, what do we expose them to in the community, all of that is essential partnership to support positive scholar outcomes. So the questions that I was hoping to get a little bit of dialogue around was, in what ways do we need to change or enhance our approach to engaging all of our partners to ensure that they feel an integral part of our district community and see the impact of their contributions in advancing our vision? In other words, how do we build this sense of ownership and engagement on the part of our community partners so that they actually can see the value of their time and talent, and in some cases dollars, in helping our scholars succeed? And then the second question, how do we ensure equity for all areas of the district in accessing resources and opportunities to engage? Again, a lot of feedback that it's great to say, much as you said, Charlie, it's great to say we've got these programs and resources. It's great to say that we have access to these, but in point of fact, many see barriers to that. And so one question that we have in discussing this issue was, how do we ensure equity for all areas of the district in accessing resources and opportunities to engage? So if we could, in a very few, let me grab that pen back from you, Charlie. Thanks. Give me some thoughts about this question and the importance, obviously, of family and community engagement and their active partnership. How can we, what do we need to do to change or enhance our approach that we use to currently engage these partners? What would you, from your experience being in the community and interacting with our partners, what do we need to enhance or change?
Me being in the community, a lot of times we don't go into our religious-based buildings, and we don't reach out to them. And what I noticed that we fail and to do that is a large part of our district is minorities groups, and a lot of our minority groups frequent with a lot of these religious bases, and the religious base is the cornerstone. Not to say that it's not for any other race, but it's the cornerstone of a lot of what they do. It gives us an opportunity to be able to reach people where they are and where a large amount of our families are. And so I think that we need to figure out some sort of way to tie in with our religious leaders to get them to buy in, and that way the student as well as the parents, they believe in these religious-based leaders.
Right.
And so if we have them involved, it's nothing but help for us to be able to reach the families.
Yeah.
And they spend a lot of time in these places.
Yeah, they have influence.
Yes.
Go with those who have influence on who we're trying to
Yes.
serve. Okay,
Yeah.
good point. What else?
There's something, I don't know if we can use that one try to reach the community members for one specific area, for example, Cathedral City. But they invite by using QR or one way to register your name, and they have one limited capacity, and that room or that capacity is filled quickly from residents, even from another area, because they want to interact with that specific person. And I say, you know, when you have those kind of idea, try to reserve spaces for the community that you try to reach. And the same thing, maybe from the school district, we have to find a way not only to produce the invitation, have to connect that community to be aware of that invitation. Especially in the Palm Springs Unified School District, we have a lot of parents that they are not familiar with that type of invitation.
Right.
That we need to educate the community members how to use that tools, or to use another different tools to invite them to engage.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. Other thoughts on the current approach that we use? Where is it working? Where does it need to be enhanced? If ultimately the goal is to, and it isn't just an engagement, we purposely put the word active partnership in there. This isn't a one-off. We're looking for partners who understand the value in connecting and supporting and engaging with the district and those scholars. And so we're looking for that kind of a relationship. Is there anything that you think we're not doing as well as we could, or a different approach in trying to build that sense of a partnership relationship?
Our community and parent engagement leadership has changed. So we need strong leadership there. We also need a plan, I think. A lot of us go to online Zoom meetings with our special education parents, our APAC parents, and we see the numbers maybe start stronger at the beginning of the year and then die off. So I don't have all the solutions, but these are just kind of trends that parents become more passive.
Yeah.
Also, we take over and we present something, and the parents, ask for feedback, and they're maybe too tired or don't know enough. That it's gone so fast and so much information that maybe we're rolling out too much. And, to get parents to be involved in Zoom groups, that's kind of like out there. It's 6 o'clock at night or 5, whatever the meeting is. And I see that, you'll get the same parents over and over.
Right.
And so how to flip that is, we have such great engagement when we take our board meeting out to Desert Hot Springs High School, and we move to other side of the freeway, and we have our board meeting there. We have our honors there. It is filled. The whole theater is filled, and it's like, we need to see that come on this side too, and how that happens, I'm not sure. But as the year goes on, it does.
But it's very similar idea. It's better to be where they are, whether they are, in faith-based organizations already, that's where they're showing up, or be in their territory, in their schools, instead of having the expectation that everybody's going to come and participate with you wherever you are, right? So it's tough, it's hard, but that's an important piece. Anything else on this?
I would like to add too as well. I've been to track meets the last 2 years, and it is ridiculous.
Would you say track?
I've been to track meets. It is so many families and parents that are there at those track meets. I don't know if that's an opportunity for us to be able to reach out to them while they're there, but these track meets are so well attended that I've never seen so many people in my life.
Thousands.
Especially when I go to the track meets. They're standing on the side of the road. They're all along the gate. it's more people there to track me than it is a graduation.
Yes.
So maybe that's an opportunity for us to insert something there
Yeah.
as they're coming into the gate, just at least to be able to reach some of those people, to be able to say, hey, this is what we have available. Or maybe we can even have something to where we have some of those groups, parent groups there that are available to maybe be there at those events.
Right.
But wherever we're seeing that the people are at, that's where we need to be.
Yeah.
So we need to get out of the idea and the traditions of they're going to come to us because
Exactly.
they're not.
Exactly. And look at some non-traditional venues like that. And the other thing you mentioned, I heard when I did the parents forum too, is that are we using our parents enough to help other parents and support other parents? They said more than willing to show another parent how to navigate and how to access services. And maybe, I mean, your idea that you just mentioned was, you know, having parents there who are also willing to be advocates and talk to other parents that happen to be at that event about the services or resources, whatever that may be, was one of the things the parents mentioned, using them to help in that process. Interesting.
We have to find some sort of
Yeah.
way to really be intentional
Yeah.
about it. So if we're really serious about it, then we can't allow and just say, well, normally this hasn't worked and this just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So we have to say that we're going to be intentional
Right.
about getting them involved, and we're not going to stop and we're not going to accept
Right.
that they just don't show up.
Right.
Because that's a lot of times what it says is they don't show up.
Right. And
But
that's
they
the
do
that's
show
the
up-
end of it.
They
Yeah.
do show up to whatever matters.
Right.
And so we got to find out how to get them to where we want them to be,
Yeah.
if that's something that we really want.
And that's where a measurable objective in that area can stimulate innovation. Because if we've set ourselves a measurable objective to increase engagement, whatever that looks like, then that's going to force a critical look at the current approach and innovation on taking a different tack. Because now you've got a target. So anyway, let me.
And one more thing
Yeah,
before you
please.
move
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
Because I think this is important as well. The work that we have been doing, I don't want to say that it doesn't work, because all of the efforts and all the energies that everyone has put into place to do what they're doing, they have their hearts in the right place.
Yep.
They have the right intentions. So I don't want to sit here and say what they're doing is bad and badmouth what has been going on.
Right.
Because they have been trying, and their intentions are to do well.
Right.
And so I don't want to sit here and say that what they're doing isn't working and
Right.
they're terrible. But I just want to say that some of the things that we can do to be innovative,
Right. But let's
And not-
let's take a critical look at it.
adding,
Yeah.
not saying that anybody's not doing what they're supposed to be
Absolutely.
doing.
But again, if you're going to be in a culture where you're accountable and it's a culture of innovation and accountability, it means being able to take a critical look at what you're doing and where it's not hitting the mark and saying, you know what, that served us well, but as we look forward to these challenges, it's going to require a different approach. Okay, I know I'm bumping up against your time. The next steps, just so you're aware, again, we will continue to refine and develop these statements and put them out for feedback. You're going to see what will in essence be a pretty complete rough draft by your meeting on, I think we're scheduled for May 12th. And then we will take final input with our groups and yourselves, and we will look toward, our goal is to come for your final review and approval in June. Let me just close by saying I shared a lot with sort of, who we asked, and you see the data of what we got back, but what I didn't share was sort of the tenor of the conversations, and I think this is just a great point to close. For the most part, participation was actually pretty good. We had a consensus group of 30 people. 26 showed up to those forums. That's astounding. In my book, that's astounding. So for the most part, participation has been very good. The conversation I would characterize as earnest and supportive. I would say that the tone is that there is a lot of sense that the district is sort of at a turning point, if you will, a potential turning point for the district. There's a lot of hope and excitement, but there's also a lot of expectation. And there's a sense, in some cases, and again, I'm going to talk to the principals on Thursday. It'd be very interesting to see the perspective I get there. But there's a sense, even with the hope and excitement and expectation, there's a sense of change fatigue. I think I call it change fatigue, and you can understand that. But at the same time, what cuts through all of the groups, whether they were, complaining about this or that, or had other ideas about this or that, what cuts through, which is fantastic, is that everyone who I talk to cares very deeply about the kids, about the schools, and wanting to see them succeed. And I think that's energy that you absolutely can grab onto and try to understand the expectations and have a multi-year vision that can meet them. So that's where we are. We'll see you again in about a month. We have several meetings before then to clean this up and bring it back to you.
Can we get the draft before the workshop so that we see what's coming and
Not a
we
problem.
can study it and know like what questions we might have?
Not a problem. And I want to thank Mr. DeLizia for his work in our district since we've started this process. You're very professional and you engage those that work with you. So I appreciate you, sir. And I want to thank our board tonight. I heard you loud and clear about making sure that the language that we use is very intentional and specific, especially around when we say equity and inclusion and the words that we're going to use to make sure that we're pushing this district forward. And as always, thank you for your leadership, and we'll continue this work and bring you back our next steps. Appreciate the feedback too. Thank you, sir.